And welcome back to Tech Talk with Ed Quinn. Our next guest on the show is going to be Kenny Newell, the community leader for Peoplefun, developers of games and applications for the latest smartphones and tablets. They recently developed and launched a successful challenger to that world-famous game made famous on The Big Bang Theory, Words with Friends. Their game is Word Chums, which is now available on the Apple Store and is also available on the Android-based devices and the Kindle. Kenny, tell us what it is like to work in such a challenging industry.
Ed, I've had the fortune of working with the guys at Peoplefun, which have a great pedigree of games that they've worked on over the years. The Age of Empires series,
right?
The Halo Wars. Some of them worked at Robot Entertainment and worked on Orcs Must Die, and quite a few games of that sort, which are really massive games. One of the best, selling PC games of all time.
Right.
So there's a core of just unbelievably talented people that I work around. It's a small group, but it's unbelievably talented, and they know what they're doing. They are spectacular at what they do, and it's kind of amazing working with them. And I think it shows in the way they develop games and what they do. They put a lot of time into making great games.
Now, what does it take to be a successful community manager for somebody like that?
Well, I know you wanted to talk a little bit today about that, about what community management is.
Right.
It's depending on the size of the company, it has a big difference in what you're doing.
Right.
At a small company with less than 10 people, like we do, but we develop great games and what I would think are AAA type titles. You do quite a few things. You're managing all the social media stuff, so your Twitters and your Facebooks and your Instagrams and your Tumblrs and your Pinterest, all those type of accounts. But also, you have to think of it, Ed, you're like a liaison between the purchasers and the people that are developing the game. And so it's your job to kind of go out and see what people like and what they don't like. They like this feature, and you got to get that information back to the company. So in one way, you work for the company, and you're doing stuff for them and promoting them, and in the other way, you're kind of an advocate for the customer. You're figuring out what they don't like so much, and trying to successfully relay what's important. You got to wade through a bunch of stuff back to them, and so they can make improvements. If that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's basically you've got to, for lack of a better terminology, I see a feature that I would like implemented into the game, and I hit you up about it. You've got to figure out, okay, exactly what it is, because I could just say, I want a thesaurus put into the game. Well, what kind of thesaurus? How do you want the thesaurus implemented in items like that before you go back to the developers? Because if you go back to the developers and just say, put in a thesaurus, they're going to look at you like you just sprouted a horn. Yeah,
exactly, Ed. And so we try to take that. A community manager, I help put on contests and give away coins for the game and do media events where, just like we're doing here, where I interview on the air and talk to people. And so I do what I would call public relations or marketing type stuff, making commercials for the game, that type of stuff. And then at the same time, that's really all interacting with the customer to get better feedback of what we want better. And I think they're really good at doing that. They took something that was a game, a successful style of game or genre of game, and I think they improved on it. With Word Chums, the ingenious part that I think is awesome about Word Chums, and it's right now the highest rated word game in the iOS App Store, which is a massive market, or the biggest market for mobile apps. They said, what do we like about these board-style tile-playing games, and what do we don't like? And so they made a lot of improvements. One improvement is that you can do 2 versus 2 player team games, or 3 players at a time. Also, I know when I played some of those games, you'd spell a word, and then you would hit submit, and it would say, that's not a word. And so you'd feel rejected like a moron, right? Well, we took that away. We have word verification, and so guys like me who can't spell that way, it makes us feel better about ourselves, like we know what we're doing. And and it also has a badge that tells you, how many points it's worth. So basically, we put a dictionary in there. You can touch a word and see what it means. It's verifying whether you're right. It has team games. We added avatars to the game, and also a leveling system. So as you level up, you get to buy gear. And whether you play your first game or 300th game of some of the titles out there, then it's no different than the 40th time you played.
Exactly.
But the 100th game of Word Chums is much different than the first game because we're leveling up and getting tiers. But I think ease of design, I think they just put a lot of time into the interface, the user interface, and just making it a spectacular game.
Very, very cool. So not only is it a challenge amongst friends, because let's face it, all guys are competitive and we all want to beat our buddies, but it's also dangling that carrot out there a little bit for you, making you want to continue to play to, again, get the gear, get the leveling system up and go, well, yeah, you might have beat me that time, but I'm still a level 35 and you're still only a level 20.
Yeah, well, we have big leaderboards and we have what I would call smaller leaderboards. We have a weekly leaderboard that basically resets and tells you, hey, Ed played the biggest word last week, 127 points.
Right.
And you get ribbons, you get badges at the end of the week to say you're the number 1 or number 2 player amongst your friends.
Right.
The highest word or the highest point game. And then there's also a continuing leaderboard that shows the highest leveling up. And we think that that's fun. That's part of the social integration of the game is that you're playing against friends, you're playing against buddies, and you're trying to see who can win that ribbon each week. And we put those stats inside the game. So you know how many wins and losses and the biggest words you played. It keeps track of that. But in this market, the integration of being social into games, as you know, is very, very important. It almost has to be in most games.
Exactly.
Are becoming the mainstay in most all genres and platforms.
Exactly. Now, while the mobile gaming platform has been around for a little while, it is still fairly new. And I would say really wide open for exploration. Is this really an area that is only limited by the developers and the designers' imagination moving forward?
Well, I think I saw yesterday that they're going to be shipping 50% more tablets to the market than they did last year, this upcoming year. So I see the touch interface, the tablet, as the next big, thing, obviously. But I think there's a challenge in learning what controls that you can use, the interface to it.
Right.
And, as we're used to playing maybe a real-time strategy game with a keyboard and mouse, how are we going to use touch controls for these things? So some genres haven't, I don't think, completely made the transition into what would be a touch or a tablet-type game. But I think the big winners are going to be those people who finally figured out how to get those games and those controls and mesh them into one and really make some progress in user interface, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's only going to be growing. It is somewhat of a saturated market right now. There are a lot of apps, a lot of things out there, but I think it's only going to grow in that aspect.
Right, and let's face it, that's one of the things that makes America so great was competition, seeing what your competitors were doing and going, I can do that better because I can implement this to it.
Sure. I think at Peoplefun, we have a good core group for that. We have people who really innovated in the PC market, who really innovated in the real-time strategy genre. They know how to innovate things, and they know how to take big chances and jump ahead and do great things. They're amazing people that work there that I feel blessed to work around. But if anybody can see an opportunity there and jump ahead and make some changes, definitely those guys have the ability. I have no doubt in that. I think we would only probably work on a lot of games if we can improve a genre or improve a style of game or a genre of game. If we can't make it better or we can't make something new, I don't think we would work on it. We're looking to improve things massively or to really break some ground in the future. And I think Peoplefun's only going to be breaking ground over the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to be great.
Now, speaking of breaking ground, I remember on one of my first cell phones that actually played a game, Snake, and thinking that was as good as it was going to get. Now looking back, it reminds me of playing the old Atari 64 when it first came out. Some of these games now are just really a step or two below some of the higher-end gaming consoles that are out there. How do you guys take a look at the technology that is coming on board, like the touchscreen technology, and try to figure out a way to implement that? Is it just a complete, strip down and redesign the game, or how do you guys go about figuring that out?
Well, I'm the guys that work there from the interaction I've had with them on my end, and I'm not. We're such a small group. Everybody
right.
puts ideas in and has input into development, but I don't really necessarily see them as picking a platform out and then going for that platform. I think they just make a great game and then just see where it fits.
Gotcha.
So let's make a great game, something that we love, and then if it fits on Facebook, if it fits on Android, if it fits on iOS, if it fits whatever,
right.
Let's put it there. I think something that they do well is they just try to make something that's fun, that they like, that's an improvement, that they feel like they would want to play, and then if we think it goes somewhere, put it somewhere. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't jump on the edge of. I think they could do any platform, whether it was a PlayStation 4, whether it was PC, whether it was mobile, whatever.
Right.
Then I think they could develop for anything. To be honest with you,
okay.
if they wanted to, it's just kind of picking the projects that they think that they like and they want to work on. That's kind of the fun of working with a small group. But they're definitely not limited by their abilities at all.
Very cool. Now, as you've mentioned, it's kind of and I don't mean this in a pejorative way, it's kind of a small studio feel. It's a small team, small family. How do you guys overcome some of the hurdles that face you that the bigger game developers just are able to blow through? What are some of the hurdles that you guys have to overcome to be able to get a game out there to the masses?
I'll kind of speak from my end because I know it a little better from
right.
the community management standpoint. But from a community management standpoint, us being small is, it has its drawbacks, but also it has its advantages. It has its advantages that we can be more personable with the customer.
Excellent.
And talk to the people on Facebook and talk to the people through our social media. And we try to make those personal connections with them. And when I see someone, they're having a good time, and they win a contest, I always try to personally tell them thanks. And thanks for playing our game. We appreciate you playing our game. Thanks so much for being a fan. I think making those personal connections with those people, because we're so small and we can take the time to do that,
right.
And you don't get, blown away. How many mobile games do you know, Ed, to where you log on and you've talked to someone who's developed it? Somebody who's the community manager or someone who's part of it that said, man, Ed, I appreciate you playing. I like that you played our game. We really appreciate you spending money with us. Not very, I would probably venture to guess not that many.
I can give you the exact number. 0.
I think what I've tried to do from that aspect of being small is to make sure I touch as many people as possible with personally, right. Meaning that I try to make them game advocates.
Right.
And you probably know that from a listener standpoint.
Right.
You've been in the radio industry. That when you see a fan and you shake their hand and you tell them thanks for listening, they're probably going to keep listening to you.
Exactly.
They feel a personal connection to you. And from being a small company, we try to make it a fun, personal experience of things that we want to do. Right. Overcoming that hurdle is probably something, as we grow and as we get bigger, that'll be harder because instead of having, thousands and tens of thousands of people, and you start getting into millions, it's hard to make that personal connection. But I think right. touching as many as you can and being personable with them is something that we're strong at. We try to be very accessible, I guess I should say.
Very cool. Now that kind of leads me into my next question. Invariably, I don't care what game it is, what piece of software there is, there's going to be a ghost in the system somehow, some way that you just wasn't caught, wasn't thought of, or anything. How did the people over there at Peoplefun handle ghost in the machines? And when people, come back and say, hey, something goofy is going on, how do you guys get that situation resolved?
Well, we try to do it as quickly as possible, depending on the platform. It takes a lot longer to make a fix to iOS devices than it
right.
does to Android
because
devices.
You have to resubmit it to to them to be able to get the approval to put it back out.
The approval process is a lot slower for iOS than it is for Android or Kindle. We can make those updates really, really quick, but it's not necessarily on our end how quick we can fix it.
Right.
We can fix things very, very quick. Right. But then you submit it to them and then cross your fingers and hope that, it might be done in 2 days, it might be done in a week.
Right.
But you hope that it's not something that's bad. We haven't really ran into anything that's just, oh my gosh, that
right.
was a game changer for us. But it's nice to get those out quick so it doesn't bother the user so much. And probably one of the good things about working with them is that we go through a lot of user testing and polish on the game. And so by the time it gets to the user, it's a well-polished game, and there's massive going to sneak up on us. Hopefully, cross my fingers. I just hexed myself by saying that, didn't I, Ed? The next patch, they'll all go down.
Right.
No, but I think we're good at that, and you just have to play a lot.
Right.
Working at the studio, you have to play a lot. You have to have people play a lot, and odd things will crop up. But something that our fans and our user base is really good at is if they see something odd, they always get with us and they always talk to us and say, "Hey, man, this acted weird," or "I don't understand why this,
right.
this seems to act funny," and figuring out whether it's just their device or it's a bigger problem. But since Peoplefun is really, Ed, everybody in one room. This is not like, I think that's one strength of it is everybody's sitting in the same room at PCs, and so they can look over across the room and say, "Hey, Leon, there's a problem with the server," or "Hey, Tony, there's something wrong here with this user interface," and it's just talking to the guy across from you. It's not like we have to go through a lot of red tape to get stuff done. It's a small, elite, very strong team.
And that's what I was about to say was, being a more boutique-styled entity, you don't have the red tape, and we've all ended up working for a huge conglomerate someplace, sometime in our lives, and there's certain perks to it. But one of the biggest drawbacks is, in order to get something done, it's got to travel basically a mile and come right back to the desk behind you. Whereas at a boutique, all you got to do is turn around and go, "Hey, can you get this taken care of?" Yeah.
Sure. Exactly. You can turn around to the guy or send an email, and they're looking at him. You're looking at him in the face every day, and so it's a very quick process for us. As gaming companies grow, or any company grows, really, that's the challenges of that get bigger because there's just more space, right? But I think that's a good problem. Sometimes you're growing so quick that you got to make those adjustments.
Right.
But a good thing is I think Peoplefun's going to somewhat stay relatively small and grow, in a way that's responsible. And when we need to add those people, then those guys will add those people. But they're all well schooled in business and development, so they know exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to do it.
Now, for the games themselves, all anybody has to do is go to the Google Play Store or the App Store or whatever and type in the name of the game that they're looking for. And we've mentioned several on the show today. But is there a website that they can just go to be able to sync up their device and get the games and kind of peruse some of your other fine works out there?
Yes, you can go to our main site is peoplefun.com, but just put Word Chums into your Google Play or your Amazon for Kindle, I believe, or your iOS App Store, and it will pop right up. There's a free version of the game that you can play, and if you want a version that doesn't have ads, then you can definitely download that one too. We're always appreciative of it, and I think it's a wonderful game and a wonderful experience. I think once you go to it, you don't go back, and that's the thing that I hear from a lot of fans is, "Man, I used to play that other Word game, but once I started playing your game, man, that other one seems like, I'm sitting here, it's just such a grind."
Right.
So I like that we convert players. If we can just get it in their hand, it works. But you can go to any app store, on your major devices, and it'll be right there ready for you.
Excellent. Kenny Newell, thank you so very much for your time today. We really do appreciate you calling in. You guys don't go anywhere. I'm going to be telling you which one you should be buying for Christmas this year, the PS4 or the Xbox One, right here on Tech Talk with Ed Quinn on the Red 13 Radio Network.